Hello world, this is Stefan of Lendrigan Games. Things haven't gone as hoped, but have gone as they usually do for me. Having tried various creative efforts, they all start off rocky and frustrating. I didn't even want to make a status update until I had a new status, but unfortunately I haven't managed to accomplish anything between then and now. What I have right now is I'm trying to get the blue dot and trying to get the blue dot to react to whenever the black dot crosses its circle, or when the blue dot crosses the black dot circle. Either one will do. Unfortunately, I can't get it to react. It has the black dot's coordinates on hand, but will never move to the black dot whenever that event occurs. If any of you know C# and can tell me how to make it happen, any and all help would be greatly appreciated. As for the rest of the obstructions, the first major one being, like I said, compounding with my previously saying that I'm horrible with dealing with interruptions, starting the Lendrigan Games brand has been a giant interruption. I've been, I said that I have a Leo Bloom working with me for art, but I can't depend on him yet because he's still working on his own stuff, and I shouldn't depend on him yet because until I get some gameplay going, art assets would be useless. So between creating the logo, starting social media accounts, starting game site accounts, buying some websites, just setting up all sorts of things for the brand. It was about 3 weeks to a month between hitting my first milestone of clicking and moving and putting up my first video. Now, having a month of doing not programming after having done only very basic programming, I more or less forgot everything I had learned by then. So I'm also relearning and trying to get myself back up to the going back from 0 to 5 miles an hour. Of course, the other major obstacle is scheduling. I'm not yet able to to muster up extra energy after I'm done with my day job to work on this. So each week yields only 2 sessions of working on this. I say sessions and not days because I'm still new at this, working at this is a psychological effort, after which I can push myself only so hard and can take only so much frustration before storming off to maybe come back later. Ugh. So that's where I am right now, trying to push myself harder, but I'm just not there yet. Now that we have that out of the way, the rant. What is a heavy metal game? Now, a definition that I've constructed myself is a game that expands the horizon within the heavy metal landscape. Yes, it's completely abstract, but hopefully you can get the gist of what it implies. Now, I'm going to just assume that you all can explain on your own why Tetris is not a heavy metal game. So instead of going through all the basic things, I'm going to just skip to a couple of the finer points. And for that, I've got four examples for giving context. Three of them are games, one of them is a television show. Those are Brutal Legend, Metalocalypse, Super Dungeon Brothers, and Doom. Now, with Doom, I'm more or less just conflating this series into one entity, except for three. And of those four examples, the two that are heavy metal media are Metalocalypse and Doom. So then what makes the other two not? Now, what keeps Brutal Legend from being a heavy metal game can be summed up in the phrase, insert noun here, of rock. Anytime a medium invokes that phrase, they're not invoking something specific, a specific item, they are invoking a culture. And so it's an abstraction. Whereas with Metalocalypse, yes, it is a heavy metal band, but it is death clock. There is a heavy metal culture within Metalocalypse, but the culture is it is a death clock culture. And so my first of the points is that in order for a game to be fully heavy metal, it has to bring something specific. In order to expand the horizon within the landscape, it has to bring something unique and distinct. And in order to do that, it has to be something specific and concrete. Now, I'm not going to badmouth Brutal Legend for not being a metal game, although I will freely badmouth anyone who thinks that it is one, because it's not a metal game. It is a love letter game. You moron. No, it's Tim Schafer had stated that the entire project is a love letter to heavy metal and specifically the more ridiculous aspects of heavy metal. The reason that the one thing that Brutal Legend never brings is itself is because it's all about pointing outwards towards heavy metal. Now the second point is where Super Dungeon Brothers and Doom comes in. And that's the aesthetic and the action. Now, where Super Dungeon Brothers fails to be metal is that the action and aesthetic are clean. Cleanliness is not a quality of heavy metal. It very much is not. Heavy metal is not only is heavy metal not a beauty contest, it is an anti-beauty contest. Action in a heavy metal medium is necessarily violent and dirty. And and that's where Doom shines. It's pulse pounding, it's gritty and brutal, and in fact brutal comes from the Italian word for ugly. So yeah, those are the two finer points of what makes a game heavy metal. That it brings something specific and that it's brutal, dirty violence. Now, as for my own game, it's the conflicting thoughts that I have come from, yes, I admit it, the culture of heavy metal. It's as academic as I'd love to look at it, there's no escaping. You're going to have to deal with the culture and specifically just the idea of making a game for metalheads. Because that was also a sort of definition that floated around in my mind. It's also a bit of a litmus test, sort of can you tell this game is being made for metalheads? And then while the definition theory, the definition by or the dictionary definition, because people love waving that around, of a metalhead is somebody who's a real big fan of heavy metal. In practice, just all of my experience with metalheaddom, and granted it is the louder ones, but still, with all my experience of metalheads, the practical definition of a metalhead is somebody who enjoys black and death metal. Granted, I hope I'm not. I hope that I'm not making any condemnations with that. It's just something I've witnessed. It's a pattern that I've seen, which is why I can't say with full confidence that I'll be making this game for metalheads, because the main subgenre from which I'll be trying to create the metal is power metal, because for the well, part of it is just my own biases and tendencies. Myself, I'm a dancer, and so I have a particular fondness for danceable rhythms, and uh, between Black and Death and Power, Power is more, it just feels more adaptable to various rhythms. Like you can have a power metal tango and still say it's power metal, but if you apply a tango rhythm to Black and Death metal, it's it gets a lot more arguable over whether it's still death or black metal. I know I conflate black and death metal basically into one genre, and that's basically because they, as far as I can tell, they are the same genre. Yes, it's an outsider's perspective, but let's face it, the differences between individual death metal artists and individual black metal artists are greater than the differences between the between the black and death subgenres. That's just how subtle the differences seem to me. I feel like I'd have to be a connoisseur in order to listen to a piece of music and say and tell exactly whether it'll be black or death. Again, I hope I'm not expressing any condemnations. It's just all it's just letting you all know from where I'm coming. And and coming back to the previous point, another reason I'm focusing on having a power metal soundtrack to what I'm doing is because power metal more easily fits the themes of hack and slash games, such as, well, acquiring power, and also with domination and conquest. Those are much more power metal themes than they are black and death metal themes or thrash themes. And I'll admit, I don't know where exactly thrash and speed metal fit into all of this, because I have yet to hear black and death metal that isn't also really fast paced. Then again, that's just my own experience. If you can, if you know some of that music that isn't also arguably speed metal, just go ahead, drop a link in the comment section. I'll take a look at it.